Morning,
We are
Chair.
meeting,
Morning, Chair.
we are meeting, we're meeting today as per our agreement, in one committee meeting where we had said this week you will receive a report done by our support staff on the issue of our study tour that we had to postpone, and then we agreed that we will try and do a thorough job this time around. So I think we've seen the presentation on the WhatsApp chat. But also we're going to get that presentation here today so that we're able to see the options that we have. I've also requested that we get sort of an estimate of the costs involved, so maybe they can also guide our discussion. But more importantly, we're going to get a data report in terms of the countries that are being considered, some of them which were sponsored by members of this committee, so that we look into them, but also see their relevance in terms of the topics that we would want to cover when we, as a committee. But obviously, with one of the main things we look at is the just energy transition, but also would then see that what is it that each country
Recording
is
in progress.
doing, in relation to that and how it's relevant to our study tour. So we will get to that, but we will also then just look at the dates for our trip, because it would help that immediately after this meeting, the planning starts, and it starts early, so that this time around we're able to not only just rely on the issue of meetings, but even check if there are no other relevant activities taking place around the time that we'll be visiting, so that we have a variety of options and we really do maximize our study tour. And then we will also then receive minutes for adoption, and that is all that we're going to be considering today. So can we please get apologies if they are there, Mr. Kotze?
Morning, and thank you, Chair. We've only received the one apology, Chair, but I see Mr. Thring. Yeah, he did indicate yesterday that he'll be in two meetings this morning, this one and another meeting. He is in the other meeting. As he indicated, that meeting will finish at around 10:30, after which he will join us, Chair. But he is on the platform, so he'll be listening with both ears, Chair, to both meetings as well. Those are the only apologies received, Chair. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. I do also want to indicate, I think it slipped my mind. Honorable Sompa has sent, I was going to forward it to yourself, I didn't slip my mind. She has sent her doctor's note, doctor's certificate. She's booked off sick by the doctor, but I'm just going to forward it to you just now, her doctor's certificate.
Sure,
So
Chair.
she'll be part of this meeting. With that, can I please get hands that adopt agenda items and the apologies? Honorable members, Honorable Hassan.
Thanks very much, Chair. I'm happy to move for the adoption of the agenda and the apologies.
Thank you, Honorable Ngozi.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair. I'm happy to also second the adoption of the agenda and acceptance of apologies. Thank you.
Thank you. Can you please then move on to the briefing on this international study tour? I don't know who will start between you, Mr. Kaze, and Ms. Bramo.
Thanks. Thank you, Chair. Morning, Chair, morning, members. I'll do the presentation on the study tour options. Sorry. So, okay, the request was to look at study tour options in the Global South. So we're going to look at the Brazil, China, Australia, South Korea, Chile, and Thailand. Those were the ones, some was suggested and some I did my own research on. So if we're going to look at Brazil, so Brazil's energy mix at the moment is dominated by oil, which is 35.6%, and biofuels, which is 33.4%. They do have coal products. The coal is only at 4.5% of the energy mix. However, it's a large component that drives the economy in the south of Brazil. So they're also looking at moving away from, transitioning away from coal. So that's why they also have a key focus on transitioning away from coal. And most of the electricity already comes from renewable sources, which is mostly from hydropower. However, like I said, they still produce 7.7 million tons of coal a year. So they're also looking to transition away from coal, and they also have policies in place that that allows this to happen. So they also have programs. They also have the program for just energy transition, and they also have national strategy for a just transition. So they also have policies in place that looks at this. So if we were going to go to Brazil, the focus there would be on the coal transition. They also have a hydrogen strategy, biofuels and bioenergy, which is something South Africa could probably learn from because they have a lot of that. Grid modernization and economic diversification, especially for the southern region of Brazil, where they're trying to move away from coal. The considerations is that the exchange rate is favorable. I think it's fine. And then it's geographically vast. So if we are going to travel, we must just keep in mind that there's going to be a lot of traveling involved if we want to go see different projects in Brazil. Okay, the next option then is China. Let me just a moment. Okay, China's energy mix at the moment is mostly made out of coal. It consists of coal, which is at 60.1%. And then the oil and oil products is 18.3%. So it's mostly, the energy mix is mostly driven by fossil fuels. So even though they also have a big drive now towards renewables, they still have a very young coal fleet, and it's still very efficient. So they'll still be having coal for a long while, but they are also looking to transition away from that. And with regards to this, they're looking at clean coal transitions, how they can use clean coal. They're also looking at like developing alternative industries in coal-reliant regions. So investing heavily in grid storage and achieving the dual carbon goals, that is to reach a peak of carbon emissions in 2030 and then to be carbon neutral by 2060. So those are some of the things. They're also looking at the economic strategy as to how to move away, especially the regions that's dependent on coal, how to move away from that. They're looking at the regional economic diversification strategies, and they're also looking at the investments in infrastructure, specifically around battery storage. So if we were going to go to China, one of the things that we'll definitely have to look at is the coal transition, clean coal, which is something South Africa is also looking at, the regional economic diversification, the battery storage. China also has nuclear power, so we can also look at that, and then the grid modernization. Then a key thing to also keep in mind, if we do choose China, is also it's geographically vast. So traveling will eat up a lot of our time, since we only have 5 working days to look at different projects, and there is a lot to look at in China. So if we are going to go there, I think we must be very strategic if we're going to choose China. Then Australia. So Australia's energy mix at the moment is also dominated by fossil fuels. It's got coal and coal products of 25.7%. The oil and oil products is at 36.5%, and then natural gas is at 27.6%. So they're also heavily reliant on the fossil fuels. So Australia also has set their targets for just energy transition. They also have a Climate Change Act, and they're also looking to reduce doubling the emission reductions by 2030 and to reach net zero emissions by 2050. So they've also put in programs especially they're also looking at coal transitions and also the regional diversifications, and then the labor redeployment, and they're also looking at how to best use their critical minerals as well. So those will be the key considerations. It's also the exchange rate. It's okay, I suppose. And then it's also geographically vast. So again, traveling between projects will also eat into the time that we would be there. Okay, then South Korea. South Korea is also got a lot of fossil fuels. Their oil and oil products is at 36.6% of the energy mix, and their coal and coal products is at 22.3%. The nuclear accounts for 17.5%, and the natural gas is at 19.7%. So it's a bit skewed. Oops, sorry. It's a bit skewed towards fossil fuel. Then with regards to the JET programs, they have a lot of initiatives with regards to the JET. They've got the Green New Deal's objectives, which is also to reduce their emissions by 40% by 2030 and achieve net zero emissions by 2050. They're also phasing out fossil fuels. The primary way through which South Korea will reach its CO2 emissions reductions will be through phasing out the consumption of the oil, coal, and natural gas energy. So they're looking also at building a clean energy infrastructure. So they're investing a lot in infrastructure. They'll look at the creation of jobs in other areas away from these fossil fuels. And they're also looking at the financing of these green transitions. So if we chose South Korea, the focus would be also on coal transition, the regional economic diversifications. South Korea is very technology driven, so they're looking to use technology to invest in their move towards green renewable energy. So they're going to be looking at energy storage and smart grids, grid modernization, and they're also looking at small modular reactors. And that's just the exchange rate. Okay, the next one. The next option is Chile. So Chile is they already have a high amount of renewables within their energy mix, well, for the electricity, but they also have coal. Their coal accounts for 10.5%. Their oil and oil products count for 42.2%, and natural gas is at 14%. Their biofuels are at 20.7%, so they also have a high percentage of biofuels in their energy mix. So with regards to their JET programs, they also have their long-term energy policy, which they've been implemented. And they're also looking to move away from their fossil fuels. So they've also implemented a just transition strategy, which is being currently developed by the government. So they're also looking at what they're going to focus on is green hydrogen and electronic mobility. So if we were going to go to Chile, we would look at their renewables, their grid modernization, because they have, as you can see, Chile is quite long, so they have to have a good grid. We can look at their hydrogen strategy, the e-mobility strategy, and the coal transition, and also the regional economic diversification. Another thing to think about when we go to Chile is, again, the length of Chile. So if the projects are in the south and then we've traveled to the north, that might also eat up into time that we are going to be there in Chile. Then the next option is Thailand. So for Thailand at the moment, Thailand has a lot of oil and oil products, which is at 41.2%. They have coal products at 11.6% of the energy mix, and then natural gas is at 27.0%. So With regards to Thailand, they they also have a Thailand National Energy Plan as well as the Power Development Plan, which is all initiatives to aim to modernize the grid, the power grid, expand renewable energy, and create green jobs while ensuring affordable and reliable electricity for the local communities. Some of the plans in place, like I said, was the National Energy Plan, which focuses on shifting away from fossil fuels by increasing the share of renewables in the power generation mix. The Power Development Plan, which targets at least 50% of all new power generation capacity, which must come from renewable energy sources. They also have an energy initiative called the Quick Big Win, which is a push towards priority in household solar installation to reduce power bills and lower emissions. Then they also have civil society coalitions, which is basically to get communities to push renewable energy systems. And then they're also looking at sustainable financing. So those are some of the projects that they have in Thailand. So if we were to choose Thailand, we would look at renewable energy, the e-mobility strategy, because there is a large push towards e-mobility, the economic diversifications. They also have a lot. We can also look at their biofuels, how we can incorporate that in South Africa. And because Thailand is a gas producer, we can look at their gas infrastructure, because this is something maybe South Africa needs to look at as well, and how they went about it. Considerations, the exchange rate is favorable, and if we are going to be based in Bangkok, we must just think of the traffic, because traffic in Thailand is quite bad. Okay, and then that's the end of it. And then just in conclusion, all 6 countries have valuable jet programs, which we can look at. And then we just need to consider the ease of travel and the value for money. That's it from my side. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Bramo. Mr. Kose, are you ready with the potential costs?
Yeah, Lee, just remove your... Thanks. Thank you, Chair. So, as you've indicated earlier, Chair, we've tried to give members at least an idea of the costs involved with regard to logistics. Now, yeah, we requested, we are actually requested quotes from the service provider, the travel agent, with regard to flights to these various countries, flights including accommodation. Now, yeah, flights I've received 5 of them since yesterday. This morning I received the last one from the Vietnam and Thailand countries. I haven't included it in this document yet, but I do have the quote. I'll share that with members. And then, yeah, what we did was we sought quotes with regard to premium economy and economy. Now, the premium economy offers wider seats, extra legroom, and enhanced in-flight services like better meals and priority boarding. It provides a more comfortable long-haul experience at a lower price than business class. Members will also note in this document that this quote does not include airport transfers, ground transport, and S&T for the duration of the study tour. Those are also, what do you call it now, big expenditure lines as well, especially the ground transport, but even the S&T for the duration of the S&T. Now, with regard to China, yeah, they've given us plus minus 3 options with regard to flights. So as you can see, there's Singapore, China, Singapore Airlines, for example, 33,000 plus minus per member. I've times it by 12, as 12, the delegation to Germany would have been 12. So all in all, 400,000 Rand for Singapore Airlines. Then with regard to accommodation, Chair, we did not receive quotes from the service provider for accommodation, because what we did was we asked that they provide us with accommodation, 4-star hotels in various cities, in the capitals of these countries. But we haven't received any. So what I did was I just took an estimate, for example. For Germany, for example, the one in Berlin was about what, 4,600, yeah, per night. So I just rounded it off to 5,000 Rand a night. And again, just times 12 the delegation and the nights we'll be spending there. So as I say, so Singapore Airlines, 400,000. Emirates, 570,000. KLM, 852,000. So if you take the cheapest option here, for example, 400,000 plus 360 is 760 plus minus. For China, Beijing. Then we move on to South Korea. Again, Singapore Airlines. Again, in most of these instances, there's no direct flights to most of these capitals. So it's via somewhere, like Singapore Airlines, as I've indicated. So that one is, for example, 31,000 Rand times 12, 372. Accommodation, 360. So that's Singapore Airlines for South Korea. And again, Emirates. What I picked up was that Emirates is in many instances the most expensive option. And what I picked up as well with regard to this is, Singapore Airlines. The South Korea is probably the cheapest option amongst all these. Then Australia, Qantas, and Emirates. You'll see Qantas twice because this is different times, as the travel agent indicated, different times you'll be flying. So the layover in Sydney to Canberra, this one, for example, I think it's what did she say? I think 20 hours layover in Sydney before you fly to Canberra. So yeah, that's Australia. As I say, excuse me, I'll get back to Vietnam and Thailand because I haven't included it in this document. Then in Brazil is probably the most expensive. Latam Airlines and SAA. There you can see the cost per flight, 81,000 Rand on Latam Airlines. SAA, this is a direct flight to Sao Paulo, 66,000. And then, Chile is also very expensive with Air France. As you can see there, flying from Tambo to Paris, and from Paris to Santiago, and then back again to Paris, and then Tambo. So that's with Air France. Again, Air France, it's different times flying out. And again, the layover times, it's longer with some. So with Santiago, it's all Air France. The last one is Air France and KLM. So we will fly Tambo, Paris, Santiago, and then Santiago to Amsterdam, and then, Amsterdam to Tambo. So, but as I've indicated, Chair, in all of these, the provisional costs, and I must just indicate that these quotes were sought for January, 16 January to 23 January, as members indicated last week, to preferably go before Parliament opens next year. So, but long story short, In all of these, Chair, South Korea seems like the cheapest option. But yeah, so that's just yeah. And then let me go to Vietnam and Thailand. Let me just wait. Where's that document? Yeah, so this is what we got this morning. This is Vietnam and Thailand. So yeah, so Emirates, 90,000 Rand, Johannesburg, Dubai, Hanoi, Hanoi to Bangkok. So as you'll see there, Chair, yeah, so 17 January and then fly out midweek, 20 January out from Hanoi to Bangkok. And then Bangkok, yeah, from Bangkok to Dubai and then OR Tambo. Offer two, again, almost 100,000 Rand per ticket with Singapore Airlines. These, yeah, no, they did not adhere to the request because, as you'll see, we'll just be in Hanoi for the whole week and then flying out that Saturday from Bangkok. Then, yeah, this is just a flight from Hanoi to Bangkok. The cost, it's rounded off to 10,000 Rand. From Hanoi to Bangkok. Offer four, Qatar Airways, Johannesburg to Doha, and then Doha to Hanoi. And again, Chair, you'll see here the dates. They did not adhere to the request. Yeah, but we'll sort that out. And then option 5, again, just the cost of a flight from Hanoi to Bangkok. So those are the costs, more or less, Chair, for all these countries. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Honorable members, I think we've heard the presentations. I will then now open it for discussions. Let's take this. I see the hand of Honorable Mylan. Maybe I can take it for now as I wait other hands. Honorable Mbata, I also noted. Honorable Mylan, you can come in.
Thank you, Chairperson. Chair, I just want to touch on a couple of things. The first is we need to decide exactly what it is that we want to study. If we are looking at just energy transition, there are two ways of looking at it. One is as a pure coal transition. And in that case, we have to look at places that have a higher usage of coal-powered technology. And see where that would be. And that would, if I look at this, it's likely to be China and Australia. The other countries are much lower in the use of coal in their energy mix. The second is, are we looking at it from a grid and transmission modernization perspective? Because that's really one of the key bottlenecks on our just energy transition. And if we look at that, there are 3 countries that stand out, being primarily Chile, Brazil, and Australia. Now, from a perspective, as Eriko and Lee have raised, and I have no particular preference here, but from a logistical perspective, it would seem that Australia is most likely the one that is the easiest to get to. I did note that Eriko mentioned a 20-hour layover in Sydney, and I find that bizarre because there are between 15 and 20 flights from Sydney to Canberra daily, and it's only 280 kilometers. You can actually hop on a train and be there in 3 hours. So sitting at an airport waiting for 20 hours, it just seems like poor planning. And I really think that we need to actually step aside from the service provider and look at our own internal arrangements, look at who we want to meet with, what we want to see, and where we want to go, and then plan accordingly. But to sit in an airport for 20 hours is ridiculous when you're only 280 kilometers away from your destination. So I would propose that we prioritize what our intention is, or what our desire is, what we want to go and see, and then base our decisions on that. I do think that we also need to look at the relevance for South Africa. It's also, China is a fantastic country and they've done amazing things. I've been to China before, but the challenge that we have is what they did directly relatable to what we are doing in South Africa? And the answer is probably not, because you're not really comparing apples with apples. You're comparing an economy that is significantly, it's multiple times stronger than ours. In that regard, I would argue that probably Chile or Brazil is more relevant than China. But again, I'm open to persuasion. I'm just laying these options on the table. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Honorable Mbata.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. I have gone through them, and I think for lessons that we are seeking to achieve, Australia will be the best, because at the core of what we're looking for lessons that have found our own integrated ways in the energy sector, not working in the speed that we want, or unveiling the best that we think has been seen in the world. It's important, Chairperson, to always remember that when we do study tours, we don't really compare everything. Sometimes we look at small opportunities as small opportunities that can enrich our own people because of the diverse nature and the difference in the economy and their abilities to advance in the economy. Because our intentions to massify our energy mix is not based on conglomerate interest. It is based on state-owned mass provision. State-owned mass provision requires you to always be mindful of where you are and where you are going. And I think Australia in this instance will be the best case. I didn't want to venture much, but I also had another country in mind called Malaysia. And I will not want to suggest it now, but it will be one of those countries. I think I've only been there in 2017. And I think I was there for Economic Development Portfolio Committee with the Portfolio Committee there. And I think we were not looking at this in particular, but we're looking at energy interest of funded enterprises in South Africa. And those energy interests of funded enterprises in South Africa, they were funded by IDC. That was like 10, 11 years ago. And that, to me, and to what we are about to look for has a specific harnessing interest to say, what is it that our people are busy with? What is it that our people are interested in? What is it that the world wants us to do? However, Chair, I think Australia, because we're picking up the pieces, for me, will be the best option. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Mbatha. Honorable Nkosi.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair. Honorable Chair, thank you very much to Ariko and Lee and the team for the report. Chair, I think what we are looking for in South Africa is that we don't want probably to transition coal completely. We do want to use coal because coal is one economic backbone of the country. Without coal, I don't think South Africa will be able to do well economically. Therefore, I will say we look at the countries that are trying by all means to clean coal, to make sure that they're trying by all means to do the carbon dioxide emissions and all that. Those countries, I think they are very crucial to look at. I was looking, Honorable Chair, to South Korea. They did a transition, or they did around carbon dioxide emissions of around 40% on coal and continue to using coal as well. Even though we want to also look at jet as well, but we should not leave coal out as the country. I think that is very important for me, Honorable Chair. I think South Korea is one country that I saw that it also trying by all means to do the carbon dioxide emissions. It's around 40% of that. And we can also look at that and see how they've done that so that we'll be able to do that as the country as well. I think that's where we want to go, maybe to look at, maybe to take some of the lessons. Also, Honorable Chair, if you look at the country number 2, I'll say number 1, it will be for me, South Korea. And number 2, it will be, Honorable Chair, I think when you look at Thailand and Vietnam, it will also be good for us to, because there will be 2 countries that will be able maybe to travel to, because they are close to one another. That will also assist us to get to study further in terms of jet, because I saw that they are also doing so well in terms of just energy transition. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Nkosi. Honorable Hassan. I don't know if Honorable Mbatha, that's a legacy hand, or you wanted to come back again. Honorable Hassan.
Thanks very much, Chair. And let me also appreciate the hard work that Lee and Rico have put with Namvuyo as well to try and give us these country profiles, but also pushing, and I'll say it here, very inefficient and very problematic travel agent to get us this relevant information. So I'm not shocked that they sent us the wrong information or not quite sufficient what we asked for information on the other options, but I'm sure we'll be able to source that information as we go along. But Chair, in terms of the substance, I was looking through these country profiles in the write-up, and I want to agree with Honorable Nkosi. South Korea has a population of over 51 million, very similar to ours, maybe a little bit less, of course, but in terms of the countries that have been put forward. And they have very similar situations in terms of what we're looking for. And I think there's some really valuable opportunities for us. If you look at their energy mix, it's not only they've got coal, they've got oil and gas. They've also got natural gas, which is something we need to also consider. I know we're saying just energy transition, but it's not only about the removal of coal. When we talk about just energy transition, it's about having an energy mix. And we know that our gas cliff is upcoming. It's something we really need to look at. And they also have quite a number of that. And they have some options on nuclear for us to look at. And all of those are actually packaged in a just energy transition, because the whole point of it is to move away from fossil fuels and towards cleaner energy. Nuclear is one of those clean energies, but they also have biofuels, they have solar, wind, hydro, etc. They have different options that are available to us in various elements. But it's also similar because we wanted a global south country as opposed to an Australia or UK or Germany now, because we are looking at different contexts and different situations. I think Australia might have been useful for the Minerals Portfolio Committee, given some of the interesting stuff they're doing on exploration. But I think in terms of energy, there's a better fit on some of those Asian countries that we were looking at. I think China's a little bit overdone in some ways, and I think there'll be opportunities still to do that in the future. But I think South Korea is a really interesting one, and they're doing a lot of phasing out on fossil fuels, but they're doing it in a way where they're trying to build clean energy infrastructure in that way. And the thing that's really interesting me in terms of their JET program in South Korea is they have a very particular focus on the large scale job creation. Now, that is something critical in South Africa, given the high rates of unemployment, but given the fact that the just energy transition is being framed as a job loss or a net job loss situation, when we know there are instances in the world, South Korea being one of them, in which we can create large scale job creation in this whole process. So I thought that's important to look at, particularly because if you look, there's a whole section here in Lee's document about the modest job losses to fossil fuel phase out. Now, that for me is critical because that's something we need to do in South Africa. We can get the financing, we can do all of that stuff, but if we lose jobs, that's going to be a problem. And here's an example of not necessarily losing large amounts of jobs. I find Brazil and Chile interesting, but I think it's a little far in terms of the costs. And that's another reason why I think the Asian countries are worth looking at. If you look at the costs, obviously, we're looking at it in advance, so they're quite reasonable. I want us all to be mentally prepared that this is a cost we're getting, but this travel agent, by the time we actually book the flights, after all the approvals and stuff, those costs will go up. And that is why I'm suggesting, in line with Honorable Ngozi, that we look at South Korea as option one, and I'll get to Thailand and Vietnam in just a moment, why we look at that as option two, because it means there's viability in terms of the budget. Now, why is that important? It's not about necessarily only about saving money for Parliament. It also means that if we're coming in under budget, we can extend by 2 or 3 days. So instead of just doing a 7-day tour where days 1 and 2, or maybe more than that, are used for traveling, and only 3 or 4 days are used for the actual content, what we can do is extend by the number of days, so we can have 5 to 6 days full of content, and it allows for us to move around within the country that we're going to choose, so we can do a very particularly in-depth kind of process. On Thailand, I think I've mentioned some of the stuff around why it's relevant in terms of population size. They're at 71 million, we're around 62, so a bit over, but still very relevant. Their oil and gas also accounts for the majority of their energy mix. But where I think it's different is they have far less coal in their how do I say, in their energy mix, only at 11.6%, whereas our coal is a bit higher. And that's why I thought Korea would be a more interesting example. But they've also got some very interesting stuff on their civil society coalitions, on sustainable financing. I think that's useful. But what I was also going to propose, Chin, I don't know if it's going to be helpful. Maybe we could look, because Vietnam is also a very interesting case study. We could also look maybe at South Korea and Vietnam if we're very particularly passionate about that, instead of Thailand and Vietnam. But the point I wanted to put across is, let's look at the Asian countries. I know the Asian Tigers was some time ago, but there is real value to learning and seeing the kind of work that they've done, particularly on what I've said. And if we come in a little bit under budget, we can actually before we even submit, say we're actually going to do 5 or 6 full days of content because of that, in addition to where we're going. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Babsu.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, I've looked at it from the point of view of our IRP 25 and what it's setting, the goals it's setting for us over the medium to long term. And then the energy mix within the various countries we've looked at, those that have a focus on grid modernization and expansion, and the regulatory environment within those countries. And for me, another big one is how are they dealing with the labor issues? That taken into account, plus the ease of getting there and moving internally to various sites. And on that basis, my preference is for South Korea or Australia, one of those two. I've not been to either, so I can't speak of having personal knowledge, so I defer to the experiences of Honourable Mbata and Malam, but those were the two that appeared to me that in terms of those criteria that I applied, appeared to be the best options. I've also got no Pacific preference. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Is there any other hand? Okay, so honorable members, it's becoming obvious that the two preferred countries is either South Korea or Australia. So as we have seen that in terms of our estimates, including with the suggestions that you have made, Honorable Malam, about considering other ways of moving within the country, instead of just considering flying, which takes hours and hours, we should also consider ground transport like trains and so forth. So I'm going to request Ms. Makubalo and Mr. Jose to help us to get a full estimate of both the countries, like a properly written estimate, which we'll send to members before, and then in our next committee meeting, we'll just add it as one of the points, which I think will be quick, where maybe we will then look finally at the full itinerary. Okay, it may not be the full itinerary because maybe we may not have the full activity. Like we can't start asking a country to make or rather confirm meetings before we fully agreed that we're going there. But I'm saying in terms of the travel, we have full estimates, confirmed estimates, and then we can maybe take our final decision then, of which I do know that maybe you can indicate, Mr. Jose, when is our next committee meeting, if you know it at the top of your head. And then maybe we can include that item there, which I think will take maybe 10 minutes because we've already had this deliberation and we'll ensure that we do get the documents as members of the committee before the meeting, perhaps a day before, so that you get time to go into it. But maybe we also just convince each other outside of the meeting so that maybe when we get there, we are all on the same page. If that is possible, I think we should also look into that. So I think we're in agreement that we have cut it down to these two countries between South Korea and Australia for now. And then I want us to look at the issue of dates, honorable members, because I think it becomes one of the difficulties with being able to get a proper estimate is the issue of dates, because we do know that there will be different prices for both accommodation and flights for different times, according to what is the season in that particular country. And also, if you book well in advance in terms of flights, I'm sure it becomes cheaper than when you book closer to the time. So all of those matters do count. So perhaps let's look at the dates now. The proposed dates. Can I please get hands on the members to get the proposed dates for our travel? And Mr. Jose will help us because I'm sure he does know our program better than us, and even the program of Parliament as well, in terms of would there be activities happening in the times we may suggest that would really hinder us from being able to leave the country. So I'll request Mr. Jose to really do pay attention to these deliberations. Honorable Hassan.
Thanks very much, Chair. I agree with you. Let's start discussing the dates because that's actually, if we're honest, the Achilles heel here in the situation. We're very good at identifying where we need to go and making contact with the right people. And, we need to obviously give them sufficient time to actually get that work together. So thank you for bringing that up, Chair. I want to make two proposals. The first proposal is, I suppose, what's already on the table in terms of the January dates. But I was actually thinking, Chair, that we are technically, if I'm correct, able or entitled to more than one study tour in a term based on the content of what the study tour is. So if we're undertaking a study tour now on just energy transition, we may want to, at the latter part of the 5-year term, say, you know what, now that we've done that, we've looked at the IRP. Honorable Bapti's raised a good point on looking at the IRP because it's a long-term plan, and we say, look, we also want to look at nuclear options. We want to go to France, for example. We should be able to undertake that tour closer to the end of the term. So what I'm saying, Chair, is if we look at actually traveling, and I'm asking members to be open-minded, that first week of December, I think it's the 1st or the 4th. I was just looking at the parliamentary term program now. Obviously, Erika will assist us there. But it's actually just before the constituency period, or just the first week of that constituency period. That's the 1st to the 4th or something. Maybe that could be another option to travel in. And I say this, Chair, because what we are then able to do, yes, it's the same financial year, but what we're then able to do is say that because we traveled in 2026, we can put in an application either for late 2027 or even January of 2028. Because yes, that's a different financial year, but it's also not the same year that we're traveling in. Whereas if we travel in Jan 2027, will struggle to get the House Chair to agree to allow us to travel at the end of the year, even though it's a different financial year. Because they'll say, but you already went on a study tour in this calendar year. So I just wanted to put forward that idea to members to have two options. And perhaps, Chair, what we can do through yourself is cost it. We can cost it for that first week of December. We can cost it for that time in Jan. And then we can see. And the benefit of what we're saying is after December, it's more than a month. In fact, it's just about a month after local government elections. So it deals with the concerns members raised before. Of course, we're all going to be in a moratorium for elections, but it also gives time for those coalition negotiations, all those different things members were raising, because it gives us time to get that done. But it also means we might be able, close to the end of our 2029 term, or close to that process, actually fit in another study tour. And I just thought that members, we should be a bit prudent in how we put the timelines in, because there's an option maybe for both of those things. So I just wanted to put that forward, Chair. I hope members will consider that sincerely. Thank you.
Thank you. Honorable Mbatha.
Honorable Chair and members, good morning. I apologize for not greeting you earlier. As a traditional person, you should greet people you don't sleep with. That's the principle. I would like to agree with Mrs. Doma. Let's look at the first study tour to be that first week of December. And that should be the one that we're considering. And then we look at towards the end of 2027 to be the one for nuclear, because nuclear has grown and nuclear has developed. There are a lot more things we need to know, we need to take into consideration with the kind of decisions that have happened. And I recommend that our next study tour the following year should be to look at nuclear, and right now we look at transition. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you. Are there any other hands? Okay, with no other hands on this matter, Mr. Khuze, can you please come in and comment on these proposed dates for the first week of December?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, according to the current parliamentary program, Chair, that the what do we call it? The committee week is 30 November to, yeah, what is it? 30 November to 4 December. So that last week. So after that week, then it's a leave period up until the 15th of December. And then from the 17th, remember the 16th is a public holiday. Then from the 17th up until mid-January, I think, is constituency period. So that week is actually a committee week, Chair, according to the current parliamentary program, Chair. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Then I think it is something that we can consider. Please then do make these two estimates for these two countries, both South Korea and Australia, with these days. And then when is our next committee meeting?
Yeah, our next meeting is next week, Chair. But can I request, Chair, with this service provider, that we deal with this on the 3rd of June, please, Chair, to get our house in order with this travel agency. So I would suggest that we bring the necessary information on the 3rd of June, Chair. Thanks, Chair.
Okay, what I will do is, in the meantime, I will have a informal conversation with the house chair, just so I let him on, because I did indicate to him and we've written to him formally about the postponement. So now I'll have an informal discussion with him and notify him that after the third, we'll send in the formal letter to him. Okay, so thank you. Can we move on to the next point in the agenda, which is the minutes?
Just hold on, Chair. Let me just open the documents. Sorry, Chair. I'm just opening all the documents. First set of minutes, Chair, is 29 April. The meeting with Nexa that morning. As I indicated, Wednesday the 29th, we had two meetings. The first one with Nexa, and then the second one with ESCOM. So this is the first one, Chair, the morning meeting. Is the attendance. That's it, Chair.
Okay, okay. Other members, I do believe we received also these documents prior. So I'm checking if there are any comments to these minutes. Honorable Hassan.
Thanks, Chair. I have gone through these minutes and I am happy to move for their adoption. I'm comfortable with what's been put forward. It's a true reflection of the meeting. Thank you.
Thanks. Can I please get a hand? The second, Honorable Nkosi. Honorable Nkosi.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair. I also second the move.
Thanks.
Let me move to the second set of minutes. Yeah, 20. This is the meeting with ESCOM on the winter outlook and the shareholder compact. That this meeting was in the evening, the afternoon, late afternoon. Opening remarks, ESCOM presentation, discussions on the visit study tour to Germany, and then adjournment, Chair. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Honorable members, are there any comments? Yes, Honorable Milam.
Chair, I'm happy to propose the adoption of the minutes.
Thank you. Honorable Hassan.
I'm happy to second, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's move on to the next set, Mr. Kwase.
The next set of minutes is the 6th of May, Chair. It's the gas bill. No, it's the budget vote report. Actually, the items is around the heading, Chair. Because we did the gas bill and the budget vote report, Chair. I'll fix that, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Honorable members.
Chair, myself, Honorable Hassan.
Yes.
Thanks very much. Chair, I'm happy to move for this set of minutes to be adopted. Also is a true reflection of the meeting.
With corrections.
Sorry, apologies for that. With the corrections, of course.
Thank you. Honorable Ngozi.
Thank you, Chair. I'll also like to second the move with correction.
Thank you. Are we done, Mr. Kwase? Is there still more?
Just one more, Chair. The
Okay.
13th. There's something wrong with my mouse. It's the MOD, the NNR processes, and then discussions and deliberations on the study tour.
Honorable Bhatti.
Yeah, I will move for the adoption of the minutes.
Thank you. And Jenny Sekenda. Honorable members, can I please get a second to the adoption that Honorable Bhatti has already done?
I will second, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Bhatti. I think that brings us to the end of this particular point in the agenda. Now we move on to the closing of the meeting. Thank you, honorable members. As agreed on the 3rd of June, in the meeting that we'll have, we will then get the full estimates of both Australia and South Korea, where we'll make the final determination. I've also requested that if possible, we do keep the conversation going even off line, so that when we get to the meeting that day, at least we are able to just move quickly. Thank you so much, honorable members.
Chair, can I suggest something with you? Can we
Yes,
make
Honorable
sure
Bhatti.
that on the 3rd, when we meet, we don't just meet, we need to go ahead with South Korea and Australia. because we can't be doing this moving around and moving around. It's really one of the things that delay us. We must be decision makers on the things we want to achieve. And Chair, we are not going to get this trip right if we keep on postponing and postponing. We have to make a decision. My apologies, Chair, but thank you.
Agreed, Honorable Mbata. As you have heard, that if it was according to me, in the next committee meeting, even before the third, that is when we'll be doing it. But I mean, there's concerns about the service provider that just delays, because
Let's take
we've
him
even tried
out.
we've even tried to make things easy by even putting the dates so that it becomes a quicker process. But like I said, on my part, I will be opening the conversation with the House Chair, and do indicate that as soon as we have the confirmed itinerary, because you can't send in without it, you can't send the official submission to him without it, then it's going to follow. But I think, Mr. Kose, you have heard what the honorable member is saying, and I fully agree with him. We do need to get a move on. In fact, I would suggest, Mr. Kose, that please try and push for next meeting. But if you don't succeed, then we can accept the third. But if we are able to get these details before the next meeting, let's try and push for that instead. Then if we fail, we then consider the third. I think perhaps that is much better.
Yeah, maybe
Um,
what you can do, we can create a consideration that if the meeting doesn't happen, we have a study tour, and those are the two countries we're going for.
Yes. That's that what this prepared me to agree. I think now what's just left is an issue of logistics. It's which kind of things. We've agreed on the dates. I think it's now going to go to problem. So we will work on it. I'm just as passionate about this about this. We work on it. Make sure it's that's the
You're inaudible. Chair.
okay, so that's we influence the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. We couldn't hear you properly, Chair. Yes, Chair. The Chair has adjourned the meeting, members.
Thanks, Arika.
Thanks, Mr. Bapti.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mbata.